Sorry to interrupt the view. You guys want to talk about knives? I sure do. Welcome to Gideon Stuff. Well guys, what are we talking about today? We're talking about the most badass knife I own. So I was out here today filming a couple of, well, one big video and then a review cutting. You guys probably know which big video it was. And one of the knives I used in that video was this knife here. And this is the most badass knife I own. Why? Because this was my very first Grail knife. This is an Elk Ridge drop point Bowie, which I hate that term, drop point Bowie. I think a Bowie knife by definition has to have a clip point blade. But here's the knife. It's a pretty great looking knife, isn't it? Now, it's an Elk Ridge. And if you guys know anything about Elk Ridge, you know they're not necessarily the highest quality out there, right? And this knife has a lot of the markers of a very cheap gas station knife that you might want to avoid. Here on the blade, if you can see that, stainless steel, hand forged in China. It's a dead giveaway for a knife that you might not want to mess with, right? It also has a lot of, fit and finish issues. There's some stuff up here. The sharpening is horrendous. The sheath, could be better. But I only know all of this now. When I was a teenager, this was the most beautiful, high quality knife I'd ever seen. So when I was a teenager, my cousin Austin, who's been on the channel a while, he and I would collect knives together. We were both obsessed with knives. We love knives. This is where I've always liked knives, but together he and I really kickstarted my obsession that led to this channel. And one of the things that we would do was we'd work in the summers and actually in the winters too, as kind of handymen around town. We'd do odd jobs for people. We'd cut firewood. We'd build barns, things like that. And with our money that we would make from this, we liked to buy knives. Now back then, this was like a $30 knife, which is a lot of money for a teenager to spend on a knife, right? And it was something that my parents were not too thrilled about. They didn't want me spending money on knives, which I can understand why. But one summer, Austin bought one of these. And we had seen them, we had gone to Big Five in town and drooled over these many, many times. And then he finally bought one. And I was so jealous. I was so jealous. It was the most beautiful knife either of us owned. It was just incredible. I loved the contrast of the wood scales with this beautiful orange leather sheath. The blade was amazing. It's big, it's robust, it's just crazy. This was just jaw-dropping. This was amazing. And I always wanted one. But it never happened. I never got one. I decided I was going to buy one, and I went back to Big Five. I think it was that same summer, and they had no more in stock. And they didn't have them in stock for a long, long time. And then, years later, when I was in college, I was coming back through Taos, was where the Big Five was. And I decided to just stop by, and I saw they had these, and so I bought it. And at this time, I was already into higher quality knives. I knew what made a good knife, but buying this felt so satisfying because it was, in a lot of ways, my first Grail. And yeah, there's a lot of things about this knife that I could really, really nitpick. The steel is probably 3CR steel. The ergos with these aggressive choils don't really work the best for my hand. If I choke up here, it works all right. The fit and finish is not the best. The sheath is not as high quality as I thought it was when I was a kid, but I don't care. I really don't care. This is one of my favorite knives that I own, and it always will be, because it meant so much to me to acquire it. And with that being said, I want to talk about gatekeeping in the knife community, because sometimes I see comments of people who say things like, get a real knife. For example, on a video I made a while back, someone commented saying that their EDC was an Ozark Trail, and they absolutely loved it, and someone responded to them saying, you need to get a real knife. Once you upgrade to a real knife, you'll know what you've been missing out on. And, oh look, there goes a crane. Sandhill crane. And I think that's a nasty, nasty attitude to have, right? Let people enter the hobby at whatever level makes sense to them, right? Not everyone has all kinds of money, and not everyone's interested in high dollar knives, right? Some people just like budget knives. I love Ozark Trail knives. They're, $5-6, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're garbage. I love it though. I love finding the great ones. That's a lot of fun to me, and it might be that way for a lot of other people. And so gatekeeping in the hobby, I have never really understood. It seems really silly to me. And some people say, oh, well, the performance. If you want good performance, you got to upgrade to the higher prices. And yeah, I can see that. But I want to talk about another knife. This Schrade. I've had this since I was a teenager, and I actually bought this to help with a job that Austin and I were doing. We were clearing sagebrush for this lady on her property. And when we were out on the big fields, we were using axes and picks. But when you had to get up close to the house or the barns or anything, it was harder to get in there with the axes and picks. And so Austin and I went and bought some machetes. And what we'd do is we'd come up to the side of the house, and we'd step on the sagebrush and hold it down and then hack at it like this, which worked really, really well. And so I used this knife that whole summer to great effect. And to this day, this kind of sits in my truck. I'm not sure what the last thing I used this knife for. Oh, wait, yeah, I do. One of my buddies got stuck in the mud, and I helped dig them out and chop them out. There was some brush in the way with this. Or no, I chopped brush to put under the tires for traction. That's what it was. This is 3CR steel. This edge is gone. There's some horrible, horrible nicks in this edge. I should probably clean it up. Maybe I'll do that tonight. But I love this knife because I have good memories with it. And honestly, it got the jobs done, right? I bought this knife to clear sagebrush, and by gosh, I cleared some sagebrush with it. A funny story with this knife that I'll share, actually. I mentioned I keep this in my truck. A while back, me and a now ex-girlfriend decided to go camping. And I decided to take her to one of my favorite spots. And so we're driving up in the mountains. We're going through this forest road. And we come to a spot where there's a bunch of trucks parked in a circle, and they're blocking the road. I stop the truck. I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. I tell her, all right, I'm going to get out and go talk to these guys. She says, no, don't do that. These are bad guys. They're murderers. I just know it. And I said, we'll be fine. She says, no, what if they get you? I said, okay, well, I parked far enough away that if something goes down, you can hop in the driver's seat and get the hell out of here. So I go over to these guys. I say, hey, what's going on? Oh, we're getting ready to have a party. We're about to build a bonfire. I said, okay, awesome. Hey, I got to get up the road, guys. So, could you let me by? And they said, oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Great guys, as I knew they would be. So I come back, and a couple of them go to move their trucks. I get back to my truck, and there's my girlfriend sitting in the passenger seat with this knife like this. I say, what are you doing? And she turns to me, dead ass, serious as a grave. She says, I've got your back. Which was the cutest thing ever. But yeah, this knife still lives in my truck. And honestly, you know what? Even though I've got a lot better knives with me, if something ever goes down, pull this guy out. It's a scary knife, right? I could have someone else's back. But yeah, I should probably take this and clean it up. Again, though, the point I'm trying to make is that this is not a high-quality knife. This is not. 3CR steel, plastic scales, but it worked, right? I've gotten some good use out of this, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. And when it comes to other people's knife collections, some people collect things that they think look cool, and maybe the things that you think look cool are the stuff that other people label mall ninja-y, right? You like the Batman knives and things like that. You know what? If that's your deal, knock yourself out, right? That's great. It's great that you have a hobby. It's great that it brings you happiness. Who the heck am I to tell you that an inanimate object shouldn't bring you happiness? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's asinine. Some people really love collecting only customs. If you're balling like Jim Skelton, you know what? Good on you. That's not me, but hey, I'm happy for you, right? And some people just, they just have a couple of knives that they use, and they think they're cool, and they think knives are cool. And so sometimes they come on YouTube just to kind of connect with other people that are cool. And how disgusting to tell them that their Ozark Trail knife doesn't count as a real knife, or that their Civivi Praxis, which is their Grail knife. That's the knife that would make their collection. How do you tell them that that's, oh, that's a basic knife? You shouldn't. You really shouldn't. Everyone's at different places. And I know that all of my viewers, you guys are all amazing people, right? But I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we have seen people out there who have this kind of elitist view, who have this kind of position that I am the supreme big brain know-it-all of knife collecting. What I think is cool is what is cool. And those guys are trash. We don't want to associate with those guys. Back to this knife. $30 knife. Made in China. Pretty cheap. This is one of my favorite knives that I own. I absolutely love it, and it is the most badass knife in my collection. And, I mean, let's be honest. That's a cool looking knife, right? This is one of those things where, man, pull this out. That's not a knife. That's a knife, right? This is my Crocodile Dundee knife. I just love this thing. I love this thing. Maybe I should do a review on it. But honestly, it's weird. You guys know that I love using my tools and I beat the heck out of all my knives. I abuse them. I like to test them to the limits. The thought of like chopping wood with this knife makes me cringe. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that to my beautiful baby. Even though I've done far worse to far more expensive knives. But again, what brings you joy is not bound by other people's logic or by price tags. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters. And by gosh, this knife makes me happy. So thank you guys so much for watching. I want to hear, what is your favorite knife in your collection, or what's a knife that you have really, really good memories of? I'd love to hear all of those discussions in the comments below. Thank you so much to my channel members. They're right here. If you want to be a member, get access to exclusive perks. There's the blue button down there. Cool stuff. We do all kinds of awesome things over there on my memberships. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.